The losing streak hits 5 games for the Blue Jays as the offensive woes continue. Hey everyone, welcome into Long Ball. Rob Long, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Blue Jays writer Rob Longley. And Rob, I did check the calendar today. It is the year 2025, not 2024, but feeling pretty similar, I think, for a lot of Blue Jays fans and maybe the Blue Jays themselves as the offense continues to struggle here out of the gate. So while there is some good to very good pitching on most nights, but right now the Blue Jays definitely going through it, having lost now 5 in a row after getting swept by the Houston Astros. Is the season starting to slip away? I know there's still plenty of games remaining, but can't imagine that the confidence level is too high right now.
Yeah, Rob, well, the apologists would have looked at their calendar this morning as well and said it's still April, so it's still early. And how often have we heard that over the last couple of seasons? And while that's true, there's still 137 games remaining, as my mother informed me this morning. There are some very serious concerns with this team. Has the season slipped away? I wouldn't go that far just yet. The record, if we were having this discussion a week ago, they were 4 games above 500. So facing a pretty stout schedule in the opening month of the season, they had actually fared well, but maybe they were doing that a little bit with smoke and mirror as well, because the offense has been dead basically from day one. They've been out homered. I think it's something like 33-13 at this point. There's just no power in the lineup. The early excuses that the games were being played in New York and Boston where it was cold don't hold water anymore, because they played 6 in the Dome in Toronto and they played 3 in the Dome and under the roof in Houston, where they hit a collective 100 over 3 games, Rob, and had 8 hits, tied a 9 hits rather, tied a franchise record for the fewest hits in a 3-game series. So there are some very serious concerns with this lineup. And as I just finished writing for a column that's going to be up on TorontoSun.com pretty soon, people talk about the bats heating up, that they have to heat up eventually. And I believe that to be true, that they will heat up eventually. But when they do, is it actually going to be enough? I think that's a very legitimate question with this team, because there's not a whole lot of power at the top of the order. Maybe 3 bats that could give you some consistent home run power if they ever show up. The rest of the lineup is sort of dink and dunk, get on base and try to manufacture runs, which can work, but it's not exactly the type of offense that can explosively change a ball game with one swing of the bat.
Yeah, still pretty remarkable that the Blue Jays have not gotten much power out of their number 1, 2, and 3 hitters at this point, with Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., and Anthony Santander, the big offseason signing. So when you look at the options here for whether it's Ross Atkins or manager John Schneider, what can the Blue Jays potentially even do to turn this offense around at this point?
Well, that's the problem, Rob. The options are few and far between. There aren't really any bats in AAA Buffalo that you would want to bring up at this point. Or Elvis Martinez was a guy that people talked about prior to the season, but he hasn't done much down there. They brought up Addison Barger, who they thought might be able to help a little bit. And other than a couple of strong throws defensively, he hasn't been much help at all. He struggled mightily at the plate. I think a lot of Blue Jays fans will be hoping that Dalton Varsho will be able to inject some offense when he shows up, likely early next week, if not this weekend in New York. But that's putting a lot on his shoulders for a guy who hasn't, he had a lot of at-bats in spring training, and he's had some in single A Dunedin and with AAA Buffalo. But, he isn't exactly like the dynamic hitter that's going to lead an offense. He's going to be the type of guy that can contribute and no doubt help once he gets up to speed, but he's not going to be the savior of this thing. At some point, you have to expect that Vlad Guerrero Jr. will contribute with some power. At least he's hitting for average a little bit. But when you think of Vlad Guerrero Jr., you don't think of a singles hitter. You think of a guy who's hitting doubles and home runs, and he's just got that single home run so far. Again, if you're an optimist in reaching, Vlad turned it on about May 1st last year. So he tends to be a bit of a slow starter, as does Anthony Santander, who, by the way, I think he's 0 for his last 17 and looks just terrible in doing so. His excuse has always been, or those that excuse his performance have always been slow starter as well. But at what point is slow start not a slow early in the season anymore? Or like I said earlier, we're 25 games in. They had 23, 24 games at spring training. I mean, let's get things going here. It's I realize it's a long season, but these games mean as much in April as they do in September, and this team has a worse record than they did last year at this point, which has to be at least mildly concerning if you're manager John Schneider and the rest of the group.
Yeah, pretty crazy to think the Blue Jays were one run away from improving to 13-8, and here they are now 12-13, getting ready for a big series against the Yankees. The Bronx Bombers on a roll right now, 7-3 in their last 10, and leading the AL East. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. For Rob Longley, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.